We induce pregnant mothers all the time. Why do we induce pregnant mothers? To bring life into the world. We are ready to celebrate this beautiful baby, this beautiful life that has just begun. I want to ask you a question. Why do we see it wrong to induce death, to bring somebody to the final days of their life if they choose that? If they choose to want to end their life with medical assistance in dying, are we shunning this? Aren't we there to celebrate their love, their life, and them? Grief begins with love. The moment that little life comes into this world, we start to feel grief. We start to worry. And the moment that life comes to an end, should we not honor it? Should we not allow somebody to make that decision? I don't know the answer. I really don't. But I'm here to put it in a platform before you to have that open discussion. Today on Unfiltered, a segment of Grief Uprooted, we're going to talk about MAID, medical assistance in dying. I'm Turner Landon, and I have worked in the field of grief, trauma, and bereavement for over 25 years. I'm also the founder of Roberts Press Canada's Grief Resource Centre, where we carry over 500 different resources and all sorts of different things and constantly creating new things for you. If you're walking this journey of grief, or if you're walking beside individuals, or if it's a friend or a family member. So do visit us online at robertspress.com. Also, want to reach out and say, love, love, love hearing your comments, your stories, your comments on every platform. And I really, really appreciate them. And I appreciate your ideas. A lot of you have suggested different ideas. I just want to reach out and say thank you to all of you. In particular, I don't know what your name is, but you had left me this amazing comment, and I really appreciated it on political grief and how you were struggling with this from day to day. So I do read your comments, and thank you so much for being able to resonate with that and let me know that I'm on the right track. So let's get started. Welcome to Grief Unfiltered. This is a special episode of Grief Uprooted. I'm Turner Landon. I have worked in the field of bereavement and trauma for over 25 years. I'm also the founder of Roberts Press Canada's Grief Resource Centre. We carry over 500 different resources on grief, trauma, and bereavement. So if you are walking this journey of grief, or if you're standing beside a family or friend, or if you work in the field, do check us out online at robertspress.com. Want to take a moment and reach out to you and say thank you, thank you, thank you for all your comments. I noticed on the YouTube channel it's starting to grow, and I really appreciate your comments. I know the episode on grief and narcissism really impacted a lot of you, and I loved reading your email, and I love engaging. That's what this platform's for, to spark that conversation about things we don't really talk about, but to help us move forward. Today, I'm really, really excited to share what experience I had at Bereavement Ontario Network. BON is what it's coined. I've been a member and collaborated with them, been keynote speaker, all sorts of stuff at their conferences for, I think, over 25 years. But this year, I was able to attend in two different capacities, but there was a speaker, and Kathleen Sorensen, and she was talking about MAID, medical assistance in dying. Now, Kathleen really has dived into this topic, and she has such a unique way of delivering the message. And I was very shocked when she got up there, full of life, vibrant, and started to talk about MAID. And at that time, I was kind of like, wow, how is she doing this? And as she spoke, I realized she had embraced and learned to, I guess, understand, highly educated in the field, of MAID, medical assistance in dying, but she really embraced the beauty of life and what the celebration of life was. And if somebody who chose MAID, that that life should be celebrated. It was beautiful. And I never thought I would ever say that, about medical assistance in dying. This episode is a preemptor to my next episode where Lee Gogan actually shares her personal story of both her parents who chose medical assistance in dying at the same time. This happened February 2025. It's been all over the news. I so appreciate and honored having her here on Grief Uprooted, and that will follow this episode. Um, to dive into MAID, really wanted to do a bit of a history of it because there are things I never knew. And really, I often say we fear what we don't know. We know nothing about medical assistance in dying. I think people are very opinionated on it. I think people are very heavily strong against it and then heavily for it. But where did it actually come from is where I think we should start. So I wanted to start you off with an interesting suicide was decriminalized in 1972. That was actually the year I was born. Suicide was often seen as a crime and the family was punished. That's actually insane and hard to really fathom, but majority of people don't know that. So it was very illegal to complete suicide. It was called committed. And since that law passed, we've changed our language to completed. And no longer is the family are charged if your loved one completes suicide. Now, interesting enough about MAID, which again is medical assistance in dying, but I'm going to use MAID going forward, was brought into Canada in 2016. It was fairly new, but and things were changed up to it all 2021. And actually, who Bond, Bereavement Ontario Network, has a full video that explains more. And I'm going to put her link in this episode. If you're considering MAID or you're wanting to present it or bring it forth to a loved one, this is a great video to watch. We'll tell you all the facts. Okay, one of the interesting parts about MAID, and I think that sometimes we just think these laws are made up because somebody was complaining, that it was first brought forward by Sue Rodriguez. I'm going to try to say her name right. She was diagnosed with ALS and she fought, she wanted the right to die. So it wasn't something that somebody just came up with or some organization said we should be able to do this. This was actually a human being who was like, okay, I want the right to die and I don't want to complete suicide. So think about that in your head. Um, so different to say, I want to present to you that I want to die and I want my family around me and I want this choice to be okay. It's a hard one to wrap your head around. But eventually, she was unable to do this. And she did die in a hard way. She didn't get that opportunity. But this started people talking. People started to go, hey, did this lady make sense? Is there something here? Um, then in 1996, Robert Latimer, too, you can Google, you will learn tons about this. He killed his daughter, Tracy. Yep, I just said it. And why? He was a farmer, and his daughter had the mental capacity of 4-month old. And he too struggled with this. Now, you did put her in a pickup truck and the pipe in, and she ended up dying. Suffered with severe cerebral palsy, and he claimed he did this of compassion. Um, we all know she didn't. I'm sure she struggled when she died, being suffocated and with the fumes of the car and everything. But Robert, he believes that he did this for the benefit of his daughter, that his quality of life was not there. So he obviously was charged. He went to court and they ruled second degree murder. You read up a little more on Robert's story, ends up really still from prison. He learns to become, I think, a carpenter, an electrician, and he runs his farm with managers from the prison. And his plight was to bring awareness to this and still is. Sure, he's out on parole, and I think it was a 10-year sentence, and it's been revisited as, you know, we've all been looking at MAID. We've all been looking at this. Now, to be clear, MAID, we're going to talk about it in a bit. It is not for children. You must be 18 years of age. But Robert's case and his daughter Tracy brought an awareness to it. So that's where I wanted to go with that. But what ended up happening after this case, it pushed Canada to start looking at what are other countries doing. The Netherlands, other countries were proactive with this. And Switzerland, since 1941, MAID, and I think is 2002. So the first in Canada to accept it was Quebec. So that's a bit of the back history. You can visit the video in the link, which will go a little farther in, and Kathleen talks about it. So it wasn't something that we just kind of went, hey, people should be able to do this. It's been evolving. And I think we love to watch life come into the world. We love to watch birthing videos, at least some of us do. We love to watch babies. But yeah, of course, we're not wanting to embrace our older years or at somebody who's at their last days that is dying. But aren't we still celebrating them, life and who they were and their journey? It's kind of can't tap out. If we celebrate their birth, should we not celebrate their life and their ending? We really should. So, what are some of the main criterias? Because I think this is another area that we sometimes fall short because you only hear bits and pieces. You never really know the full story. And this podcast isn't even going to give you the full story, but I'm hoping to give you bits and pieces and a more of an understanding. So there are six main criterias if you're going to choose MAID, medical assistance in dying. You must qualify for healthcare in Ontario. Must have a grievous or I can't say that medical condition. You must be dying already. We'll just put it in layman's terms. You must have something terminal that cannot be cured. Must be 18 or older. You must mentally be competent. Now, about debate, because this one is up for debate. You must be mentally competent. This is currently being debated and may change in the future. It does make you wonder if you now, a person choosing MAID has to make that decision on their own. Um, that presently is the way it is. But I can see a bit of a struggle there, the mentally competent. And it'd be interesting to see what happens in the future. Far we go, and what would be the support documents or supporting reasons for making any decision one way or another on that. Must be able to give informed consent. You have to be able to be all there. You have to be able to look at this form, sign it. In the episode coming up with Lee Gogan and her parents, asked her parents before dying if she could share photos and music of her family. It's an absolutely beautiful episode. And they said, of course you can. And that was one of her strongest messages that they chose this together. Were able to consent to this decision. You must be willing, this is number six, you must be willing to meet with medical professionals and sign an official application. So this isn't something that you're just going to make the decision on your own. I think that maybe if we we're going to tap back into the suicide, 1972, it being considered a crime anymore. I think that's the difference between a MAID and somebody actually taking their life. When somebody is actually looking at taking their life or completing suicide, it is usually in a turmoil of issues that the mind cannot get through. Not saying a person with terminal illness before MAID have chosen to take their life, but with MAID, you have to meet with people. You have to be able to consent to this. You have to be able to go through and talk about it. They offer you a 90-day reflection period where at any given time, your mind can change. You can say no. So, something we don't talk about. We hide. If you contemplate it, you are looked upon as, this is wrong. But in majority of the time, when we talk about MAID, what we're saying is if somebody is terminally ill, if somebody is struggling, and there is no way of, no cure for that, should be given the option. With suicide, which I know is such a heavy topic, there's help. There always is. There are people to talk to. We can reach out to each other. We can support each other in this. And through rumination and our way of handling life's struggles, there is no terminal illness with suicide. So when somebody chooses this, we want to be there in a sense of supporting and helping and walking next to them. And you think that movement in 1972 really signified that contemplating suicide is a struggle, it's a mental illness, and it is something we should all be aware of and we should be talking about more. And then it navigated its way to MAID. And that's when that person is sitting with a terminal illness. These are heavy subjects, really heavy subjects. And I have to pause and say, I hope I'm explaining this right to you. I hope that I'm coming across in an understanding of both. But I think there is a correlation in our minds that we are allowing people to kill themselves. We are so not. A life illness, a terminal diagnosis has already chosen to end their life. We're looking at inducing, helping along with that. And that's the choice of a dying individual who must go through rigorous meetings with doctors, psychologists, professionals in the field, and to jointly and together make this decision. I'm not saying one way or the other way. I'm just providing you with the information. The other part of this is what was interesting and looking at some data from medical assistants in dying MAID was that majority of the procedures happen at home. Some happen in hospital settings. Above all, it really indicates that this is a private matter. This is a matter for an individual who has chosen to die before their terminal illness takes them. It's between your family and you and your medical professions to make that decision. So, how does the procedure happen? Because that's another thing we've got to look at. Happens in an environment that the individual chooses. And if they're capable of swallowing, a pill can be administered or an IV. Now, they're often given something to put them to sleep first. Then once the has stopped, they are then pronounced dead. And again, this is a very personal decision. I kind of take a moment and ask, let's talk about the parts that's harder for people to say out loud. And kind of what I mean by that is I know we're all often your comments will be, you disagree with this, or I'll hear these little comments media, which I love them all. And some of them are we playing God? Well, no, because the individual is making a decision on their own. It is not our choice. It is the person who's been diagnosed with a terminal illness. What we do is give them a platform or people to speak with, professionals to help them come to a decision that they are comfortable and at any given time may stop and say, no, I don't want to. Is it suicide? Is another question I've heard. I think I've tried to explain that one, and it's hard to tackle. I'm not going to lie. And suicide is something usually hidden. We're going to do alone. It's somebody has taken their own life when usually the problem or the reason that they've taken their life could be resolved. It's kind of like I would love to say that if suicide was more talked about, which I know we are, you too can be given a platform of people to help you through your financial struggles, to help you through perhaps your heartbreak, to help you through any struggle you're going through in life. And that platform exists. But how do we get to those individuals that are struggling with those thoughts of suicide or struggling with an addiction that's causing them to fall to a depth of a suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts? We have those platforms, but isn't. This is a choice of an individual who is competent to make that choice. Is it giving up? And I'm going to be honest. This comment was actually given by a child, and their grandparents had chosen MAID, and was working with a client, and the little one had said they just gave up. So I think it's clear that it's a choice for an individual, and maybe they want to choose to end their life on a happy note when their terminal illness hasn't got them to a point that they can no longer function. Um, I really don't think it's a giving up as much as embracing the truth and deciding what's best for themselves and perhaps for their family. I think that it's a choice. It's not a giving up. It's a choice. And a lot of times, for the people who choose MAID, they also choose to have a celebration of life. You're going to see that with Lee on my next episode. She chooses to celebrate her parents. They chose a song that they wanted played before final days. So it's more about not giving up and looking at it straight in the eye and deciding that MAID is for them. Is it wrong? Well, it's not all about just death. I think it's about our fear of death. And I had my last baby at home, and I had a midwife. And I remember thinking while I was pregnant that I work in the field of death and dying. And I often brought stories of death home, stories of, were just within me. Perhaps I didn't share them. I would often tell my young children that my soul hurts. And you may see mom crying, but she's okay. She's processing things. And when I decided to have my last child at 39, I wanted to bring life home. So I chose a midwife. And I remember my whole family being home to their demise, maybe because I was like, I want everybody home while I give birth to our last baby girl. And during this time, you know, you're helped along the way. I wasn't induced, but so many people are induced. So many people try to run down a hill or do jumping jacks to induce labor, to bring life into our world. And I think to myself, isn't this what MAID is? We're inducing the end of someone's life journey. We're inducing death, but we're doing it in a way that we're celebrating this individual. We're celebrating their life. We're honoring this individual and saying, yes, we're going to celebrate your life. We all want to be around you. If this is your wishes and your choice, then we're there to celebrate you. The thought that I want to leave with you: we celebrate birth. Can we also find a way to honor death? Can we bring it from the depths of fear to the point that we can celebrate this person who brought love into our life? Grief begins with love, for if there wasn't love, we would not be grieving. Thank you for tuning in today, and do catch the next episode with Lee Gogan, who shares the story of both her parents choosing MAID at the same time. For if we did not love, we would not grieve. It is only together that we grieve, and it is only together we heal. Thank you, everybody. Take care.